And 1, 2, 3. And then another one at the top. And release all the tension, all the stress, anything out. And we good.
Amazing. Man, I love starting podcasts with this breath routine. I think this might have to be me and Brandon's new just go-to system.
I realized, were we supposed to close our eyes or not? No, okay. All right. My eyes were closed, so I was a little more into it. I was like,
you were more into it. You're more.
I love the breath work though. Like, do you know who Wim Hof is?
Yes, the dude that's the dude that does the ice.
He does all the crazy cold exposure
yeah.
stuff. So yeah, I've been through a big phase where I just like take a cold shower, do my Wim Hof breathing every day. I remember my ex, like the first time she watched me do it, she's like, "What are you doing?" Because I'm just sitting there like,
You're like, "Are you okay?"
I'm like, I feel good. I have endorphins going through my body. My immune system is surging. But dude, we got the $1 million studio set up today. This is amazing.
4 cameras, 4 mics.
Yeah.
3 great lines, 4K.
4K.
Yeah.
And you know, the reason we have this setup is because we have an amazing guest here today. Our man Izzy came through, and we're so excited to talk to you, brother. Like, Brandon obviously introduced us and everything, and you know, you're someone who's really getting into that entrepreneurial space, specifically with kind of self-improvement content. You have that YouTube channel, Imposter Monkey, where you've been doing a podcast for how long now?
I believe it's about 8 months.
Wow, okay, 8 months. So that's about the same time. I guess we've been doing a little longer, but we're in that same time.
Still starting up, yeah.
Nice.
So with Imposter Monkey, it's all about, you know, identifying imposter syndrome and kind of tackling that, right? To help with self-improvement?
Yes, definitely. So kind of how that started was in the software development field, there's a lot of that. So you could come in and have 7 years of experience, for example, me as that example, and still feel as an imposter that you don't belong there, that they're gonna, you know, find you out and then, you know, fire you, and they're paying you all this money. Yeah. So you get that feeling, even though you have a track record. Companies have hired you, they've paid you, you've gained so much experience, but you'll come in and you'll feel like an imposter, you know, especially when you're getting a platform or an opportunity to move up. So as you're trying to move up, or as you're moving up, sometimes you could get comparison. So that feeling of imposter syndrome is very common in the tech community. So that's kind of where it started, because my brother was getting into coding. And he's like, man, I feel like an imposter. Now I really know what they mean on that imposter syndrome. Yeah. And the whole monkey side of it is that it's kind of a voice in your head that comes. You could picture it as a monkey, and it's telling you you're not good enough. You don't belong there. Right. So that's why it's that imposter monkey coming into your head.
I've always wondered that.
Just think of a monkey just screaming in your mind, telling, nope, you don't belong there. You're phony. Nope, what you're doing.
Like a limiting belief kind of thing.
Exactly. Okay, so that's what it is. You know, right now is a good example. I'm transitioning into, basically I've already been doing it for 8 months, but I'm still transitioning into a technical lead role. Yeah. And the person who I'm taking over for has all this experience. So I feel like maybe it's a sense of comparison. And I say, man, how am I gonna be up to par to that? This dude's got over a decade of experience, but that voice just keeps coming, and the monkey comes and starts yelling and saying, no, you know, how are you gonna do it? You can't do it. Sometimes you don't know. It's just ongoing self-doubt, ongoing negativity. So that's kind of a little gist of how that happened.
That's amazing. I mean, something that I've definitely experienced is that, but also I see a lot of high-level entrepreneurs will say like that's something they still deal with, or that even drove them in the first place. It's kind of that chip on their shoulder, that self-doubt. And obviously it's something that like it can limit you. Like you're saying, like if you're gonna try to go to that next step and then you have all these thoughts, it could hold you back a little bit. But also, in a way, I think it can drive you. So for you, do you see it as something where it's like you want to fully conquer that, you want to get rid of it, or is it more like coming to terms with it? I'd love to just hear like your philosophy overall with that.
Oh, that's good. So I would say it's a mixture. It drives you because you want to overcome it. You know, you're not going to let it stop you. If I have this vision or idea, I'm going to keep being persistent and consistent with it. That's what I feel I pride myself with is I make sure no matter what I see in front of me, if it's I don't feel the part, I'm gonna just keep persistent and consistent with it. And over time, just keep going. If I could just go one more day at a time. But at the same time, it does pull me back.
Yeah.
Because I'll feel like I'm not worthy. And maybe, let's say, for example, at work, I'm in a meeting, I might hold off from saying certain things because I think they might not be right. Because I feel that I don't have the complete knowledge, or I'm not quite there yet, or who am I to talk? You know, so it's a mixture. It's a push and pull. So it's a constant push and pull. So I work on focusing on the ladder of just continuing and improving and overcoming it.
Yeah.
Or else, if I didn't continue to do that, then I would just stop, which is just I couldn't.
It's not an option,
it's not
right?
an option.
Yeah,
So
100%.
you just have the option of continuing. You know?
Yeah, I think me and Brandon, we definitely see that in the fitness space, even in the pain space.
It's
Like,
just, yeah, even like right when I was a physical therapy student, I think I mentioned this when I was on your podcast. When patients would ask me about their pain, explain it to them and give them like a diagnosis, give them a full treatment plan, like I still felt like not that confident in giving them that exercise plan because I just graduated, or I was just a student, so I didn't graduate yet. I was like a month away, but I was like, it could be this, it could be that. And then my instructors even felt that on me, where they're like, hey, you gotta be confident, because if you don't believe in what you're saying, are your patients actually gonna, do it, do what you tell them to? Yeah, so I definitely feel that, where like, even right now, I'm still constantly trying to overcome it. Right, even in like for self-improvement, based on like the business news I just gave you guys before this podcast, like I was like, oh crap, I really feel uncomfortable right now, but now it's like trying to still think about like limiting that monkey voice. Yeah.
Well, as I've had previously, you guys just had Diana, right? So when I had her, she was saying, if you're not feeling uncomfortable, then you're probably not growing. So in a way, if you look at it as this is just constant growth of feeling uncomfortable, it's better than if it wasn't, So in a way, if we put our mindset to that, thinking that it is something positive, it helps us along, But I guess it's just always thinking of it as in a positive way,
Yeah, like this is that feeling I get when I'm about to go to that next level.
Exactly. Or you're in that next level, but it's a process.
100%. So with people you talk to, like I'm sure you start to identify common themes of maybe like how the imposter syndrome starts to come about, or just ways that like are the most effective ways people can deal with that. For you, what are some ways that you've really dealt with that feeling and either overcome it or help to go along with that process?
So I would say one main thing I see is comparison, especially personally. You're just comparing. If you're in social media, how many followers do you have versus them? Yeah. Or if I look at my podcast right now, how many subscribers do I have? What does my content look like? Oh, where can I improve? It's quite not what I see other people doing.
Yeah.
So that comparison is such a big thing that I would say consistently creeps up and just is what mainly picks at me.
Yeah.
It's just, look at them and look at that. So trying to push that away is kind of where it's at. Can you repeat the question one more time?
No, that's actually like really what I was trying to get at is like, like what are the ways that like you find effective to deal with that? And it sounds like, comparison is a way not to do it. So not comparing obviously is really helpful.
So not comparing, so making sure you're being mindful about your thoughts to not compare. And another thing is reflection. So reflecting, I feel, is the most important one that works for me. So I've been in software development for about 7 years. And when I feel the imposter syndrome or the imposter monkey coming to tell me otherwise, I say, okay, well, I started from no knowledge and I was able to get my first job.
Wow.
And I was there for a year and 2 months. They didn't let me go after a year and 2 months, but I got that track record. Then I got hired again and I've gained experience. And now I'm at a point where people come to me to ask for guidance, to ask for support. So looking back at all that tells me, you're doing fine.
Yeah.
It's just the comparison that's getting your mind elsewhere.
Starting to like look at that irrefutable evidence, like, okay, like look at your track record.
Yeah.
And then it starts to kind of squash some of the limiting beliefs and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you're doing the work. If you're doing the work, you could only progress. You're not gonna go backwards. So I also look at that. I make sure that I show up every day, and I like to focus my mind on, I'm getting 1% better. I'm taking it one day at a time. It's always the one thing. What's your one thing? You focus on that one thing to get 1% better every day. As long as you keep persistent and consistent with that, then you can overcome a lot of the negative thoughts, the imposter syndrome, the comparison, and feeling like you don't belong.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's like the gain and the gap. Sorry, have you heard about the gain and the gap?
No.
Where it's like when people focus on like where they are in life. So it's like, let's look at a straight line right here. Let's say this is where you started, and this is right where you are right now, but your goal is like all the way at the end. So a lot of people, they focus on the gap between where they are right now to where their goal is. So like, for example, for me, like owning a $1 million company, I'm like not there yet. I'm focusing on that too much. But however, I should be focusing on the gain of where I started. Yeah,
so you're making a living doing what you love, helping people.
Love.
Yeah,
exactly, and like how far you come as well. Yeah, that's the big thing. So I don't know if you guys were familiar with that one.
No, that's a good one,
okay,
yeah.
I'll share that book with you later. It's a book. It's called The Gain and the Gap, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that, and I think too with like a lot of clients like that I train, just simply getting into the gym, like they used to be someone who they were so intimidated to even come into the gym. They thought that was so out of reach for them. I'll never be that gym type person. And then they start coming to the gym and they make it a lifestyle to come in 2 times a week and they make some progress. Next thing you know, they're getting more into that fitness space. They're on Instagram. They're comparing themselves to all these like really, really muscular, strong, fit people. And then it can be hard to step back and go, what, remember when you couldn't even come into the gym in the first place? So I totally like that. Right, just like looking and reflecting on that track record. That's
because
awesome.
for that example, the 1% is just showing up to the gym or choosing to go to the gym.
100%.
But I always feel that we start here. Right? If you take the gym example, you start here. All right, I'm showing up to the gym consistently now. And now that you're showing up consistently, you become more involved and more detailed into more of that subject. And as you grow, you start looking higher. And that's where I feel the comparison comes. So instead of being like, okay, you're doing good, then you're here and you want to continue to improve, but then you're trying to reach all the way over there when these people have probably been doing it longer. Yeah. And it goes to that comparison, but instead of focusing, okay, I made it. And then, I'm bettering my nutrition, I'm bettering even sleep or any little thing to improve, and you don't get tied into the comparison trap.
100%. I know, Izzy, that on your podcast you have a question that you always like to ask every one of your guests. So I thought maybe we could go over that question and maybe all answer that.
Yes, this one's very dear to me, and I would say, well, the question is, what do you define as success in life?
Brandon, you should answer that first.
So honestly, my answer actually changed. I think in our podcast, I'm not sure if we did discuss it, right?
I don't think yet. No, I kind of transitioned.
Okay, all right. Oh well, this is a new one then.
Yeah, it's a new one.
Yeah, okay.
It's fresh.
Yeah, because honestly, before, even like if you asked me like last year or 2 years ago, success would have been like, oh, I'm making a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm able to do what I want, which is still what I feel like success is right now. But now for me, it's like more of like less of the money and more of like I want more time. Now I want time to do what I love, which is like I actually like working out a lot, so I don't mind doing like 3-hour workouts and also like hang out with like my girlfriend, my dog right here. So just like having that free time and just like actually sitting on a couch on a Saturday night without like anything to do, or even like on a weekday night. I feel like success is pretty much you're able to control your time and you could like sit on the couch on a Tuesday night or Wednesday night and just like not worry about anything else and just like be in the moment.
Oh, dude, that's so good. Please elaborate on how you went into that. What transitioned you into that?
I think it's when my business like kind of like took off this past year. And also when I hired my first employee, or like she's a contractor, administrator, she was actually, I realized like I was making a good number of money than before. And then I was like, hey, I'm gonna pay this girl to do my social media for me. Cause usually I would end up doing social media like in my evenings after I see like 8 people in a row or 6 people in a row. All right, then my energy would be down, all the way down the drain. Like I would come home, I'd be like, damn, I have to create some content. And then my girlfriend would look at me and be like, oh, do you want to hang out or anything? And then with the voice, I'm like, yeah, maybe in 2025 we can hang out. I'm kidding. But yeah, pretty much it was a while. So I would come home still with work. And then like there's still some nights where like I'll still work for a while, but it's not as long as I could have done before. But yeah, that's what made me realize like, hey, I don't think money is the issue, because like the more money I make, that means like I'll have more responsibilities. I think now it's like all about being less time poor, because there's like when people think of like poor, it's like, oh, money poor, they're not able to like afford where they live. I mean that's something that exists also, but I feel like there's also another kind of poor where it's like you're a time poor, where it's like you don't have time. Like my time's like very limited to what I can do. Because when I come home, I don't come home to just like, oh, let me sit on the couch. I have like chores to do now. I gotta do dishes, gotta prep for tomorrow. Because sometimes I'll do laundry in the middle of the week sometimes, especially if I'm busy on weekends. So I'm like, okay, I don't wanna do this. I wanna be able to like on weekdays, weekday nights, like in the future, I wanna be able to like have dinner with my kids and be like, how was your day?
The importance of time over money. You know, the most interesting thing to tie to that is that I have a future video I'm gonna do on the importance of time.
Yeah.
Because people, I feel, overlook that. It becomes so important, and you gotta you gotta put a price on your time, because people will rather spend time doing other things where they could pay money to do it, and they devalue their time. The way I see things now, for example, is I used to cut my own hair. I used to do my own oil changes, or anything around the house that I would need to do, I would do it myself, because I would say, I'm gonna save $40.
Right, yeah.
So I'm gonna save $50 here, or I'm not gonna get a haircut because now haircuts are getting expensive. $30, $60, sometimes $80 to get a haircut.
80.
So I would do it myself, but I'm there with the freaking mirror, cutting my hair, lining it up. Sometimes it wouldn't come out right because it's not the same. And now I value my time and my peace of mind, and I go and I pay. I sit there, I relax, I tell them what to do. And it's something I've actually been even telling my girlfriend. I say, give your time a price.
Yeah.
How much do you value your time? I would rather now pay someone who's specialized to do this to handle it, because I'd rather have my time to go do other things such as this and focus my time on that.
Because there's a big ROI with something like this. I totally get it. And for me too, like recently I started going to this, it's like a spa that I really like going to. And I was thinking initially, I'm like, oh man, it's like kind of pricey. It's not crazy, but it's like $40 to do this thing. I'm like, I could just like go on a walk or something instead. But I was thinking the amount of relaxation and restoration I get from this, and then I can take that and I can continue to sustain my work in these other areas at a higher level. The ROI is there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, especially in entrepreneurism, or when you have your side gig or your business, if you give your time to certain people that don't deserve it, certain things that you shouldn't give it to, you're taking away from what you really want to be doing.
Yeah.
So something, for example, that I've been dealing with recently is I've started cooking at home. At first I was buying all my food. Now I started cooking, but then I instantly started reflecting, well, I gotta go to the grocery store. I gotta get the ingredients. I gotta prep the ingredients. I gotta take out all the kitchenware or whatever, and then I gotta cook it. And then sometimes some meat, I gotta drain the meat. Then I put it in the trash. Then you gotta package everything. Then you gotta clean up after yourself, clean the kitchen, and then I end up getting tied into cleaning something else because I'm so about clean. And there goes 2-3 hours when I could have just spent some more money. I know it's not the best thing to do, you know, because it gets expensive, but it would open up time for me. It would open up let's say 2-3 hours on a weekend that I could instead focus on what is my next video idea, or I could have another idea that gives to something else. And I tie it to also when you travel. This is just an example on like valuing your time and not having time to do things. When you travel, the thing I've realized that I'm able to do and come back from is I always have epiphanies or some kind of realization, because I've had time to think. I've had time to work on just one thing versus I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I have my job, then I gotta run to the gym, and your time gets taken up by all of these things, and you don't get to focus on what really is success to you in life. Life
like
is so fragile.
Life actually slows down when you're on vacation or you're like just traveling with your friends or something. It's like, oh yeah, that's what I like to do before all this stuff in life happened. You kind of like uncover like the true self of like why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's when you can do that reflection that you're talking about. That helps with the imposter syndrome, right? Is if you're constantly moving, you can get so caught up in the thing. So that's amazing. And I like too thinking about like there's obviously different levels of what we're talking about. Like maybe we can't get a personal chef. We're not, but like we can do that. Everyone can do that in some way. They can think, okay, what is something that I should outsource or focus less of my direct time on that I could benefit more by doing. So I love that. That's amazing.
I like that analogy because like I actually started, that's why I order from a meal prep company now, where it's like, or else I wouldn't be doing this this podcast on Sundays with Gabe. That's why, that's why today I actually had to go to Walmart, wake up early, go to Walmart, buy a cooler, put ice in there, so when the meal prep guy comes in, he could just put it in the cooler instead of me just rushing back home and putting it in the fridge and coming back. So yeah, definitely valuing the time and kind of seeing like what the ROI is.
I love that you brought that up, man. That's
amazing.
It's interesting how
the time part is a big thing.
what your mind is at a certain point in your life, sometimes it attracts other things similar. I didn't expect you to talk about that, and I'm like, oh, that's fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
So what about yourself, Gabe? What do you define as success?
I'd love to answer that, but really quick, something that popped in my mind, because I've been thinking about this a lot, is like the people you spend time with. You know that saying, like, you are the 5 people you spend the most time with. But I'm thinking another thing that I think has helped me with imposter syndrome is the fact that I've been spending time among like more people who have similar mindsets as an entrepreneur to me. And I'm just reflecting on, like, if I was just spending time with people who didn't have ambition, didn't value the same things I valued, then like I would feel like an imposter, because I'd be like, oh, all my friends aren't like that, so how can I really be like that? So that's just kind of popping into my mind about like how that ties in,
People you're surrounded with is so important. And to add to that is I recently moved from living alone I had my own apartment, but Bay Area rent's so expensive. I'm trying to save some money. So that way I can invest in food and stuff like that. But I had been looking for roommates. Bay Area, there's a lot of tech people. You can find a lot of people in software. So I found a posting on Craigslist for a house where there was 2 other engineers. Nice. They both work at Google. So recently we have a group chat, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to tell them I'm going to interview with Meta. So I hit them up. I'm like, hey, I'm going to interview with Meta. Like, oh, sweet. They're like, hey, if you need help interview or doing mock interviews and studying, let us know. I was like, damn, I was reflecting on that. I'm like, you know what? It's wild. If they weren't my roommates, and if my roommates weren't in software engineering, they wouldn't be, hey, let's help you. They'd be like, oh, cool, man, you're going to interview with Meta. Like, oh, good luck, kill it. But instead, they were saying, yeah, I could come up and, I'll ask you questions on different aspects that they would ask you in an interview. Yeah. And one of them said, hey, when are you looking to? I could help you. And one day we just sat there and we were just having a conversation, but this guy was so passionate about it that it turned into an hour conversation. And I started learning, my mind started working. I'm like, damn, this is so good. As he was explaining, because who you're around with is so important. Yeah. They could help you out, or they could either bring you up or bring you down. And then recently he's like, hey man, because I told him I had a mock interview. So I had a mock interview and I told him what stuff I still needed to work on. And he said, well, I could help you do another mock interview. So on a Thursday where I usually have more free time because I don't go to the gym, he messaged me like, hey man, mock interview at 7:30. I was like, all right, cool. And then I, had dinner, got ready. And then I went, he was on the table. He had his laptop out. He's like, all right. He had his arms crossed. I was like, this is great. It looks exactly like an interviewer. But we ran through a mock interview and I got so much value out of it. And then my other roommate came and then we started having this whole conversation. And aside from what they were teaching me and the conversation we were having, I just reflected in that very moment of the fact that because they were there, because they're engineers in Google, and me, giving the opportunity, because I didn't want roommates, giving the opportunity to be with them, it helped me out so much. Yeah. So much value. It just to add to what you were saying, or right now, for example, before this, we were just chit-chatting on different things. And you could get ideas, you could get suggestions. One thing he suggested to me that helped me immensely was for when I started this, I would kind of just go into the questions. Yeah. And I didn't really warm up.
Or we did our first part.
Yeah, and he gave me that constructive criticism, but because I know he meant it in a good way with good intent, I took it. I'm like, you know what? That's a good idea. And as I started doing it, I saw how much I improved. So aside from I guess you could tie it in, aside from who you're surrounding with, is being open to receiving from who you're surrounding with. Because if you're uptight and you're not open-minded, then they might be trying to help you, but you would say, oh no, I'm better than that or something. It's the ego stuff.
For sure. Yeah. I think to answer the success question though, I think for me, it's been so many different things, and I'm constantly like trying to identify what it is. I think it probably changes for us all. But I think always what it is I want to continue to grow and improve. Like Tony Robbins has this thing, Canny, it's constant and never ending improvement. And I just feel like, for me, when I have the most fulfillment in my life is when I feel like I have a purpose and I can keep working towards that purpose and fulfilling that. So like right now, you know, that purpose is building my business. It's helping more people, and doing it with like integrity. Like I think in the fitness space especially, there's a lot of people I don't think really have the character and the integrity that they should. And like, of course, there's always gonna be temptations in life to like take the shortcuts, do little like money grabs, things like that. So I think growing with integrity is really huge to me. One thing also on the financial end, because I do want to increase my financial success. That's important to me. And I've been thinking a lot how part of the reason it's important to me is because like I want to be able to take care of my family if something comes up. There's this entrepreneur, he made this whole podcast and it was about like, okay, if you have wealth, like his mom was, she had Alzheimer's and dementia or something like that, but she didn't have a long time to live. Her health was degrading, and they are, I think they're from somewhere in the Middle East, but he was able to not only get a live-in caretaker for her, but a live-in caretaker who spoke the same language as her. And like, he paid for an experimental drug that she wouldn't have otherwise been able to have access to. I'm just thinking like, that is a beautiful reason to obtain financial wealth. It's not just a stunt on Instagram or something, but like, you can like really help the people you care about. So that is kind of an aside. Like I do want to continually financially elevate because of partly that, and you can, you know, help the causes that you believe in, and it just, yeah. So, but overall, I think it's just having a purpose and just working towards that purpose constantly with integrity. That's like really success to me, I think. And doing it on your own terms. Like as an entrepreneur, I've never been a bad employee, but I've been fired from jobs. A lot of bosses haven't liked me because I like question orders, and like I've never wanted to have someone over me. So doing that with like the freedom to be your own boss is that's success for me.
I love that. Freedom, time.
Yeah.
Correlation right there. I wanted to add to what you were saying in family. That hit home for me because a big reason that I do a lot of things and work so hard towards it. I know a lot of podcasts, a lot of books always say, what is your why? And that's a big one for me because it instantly triggered a thought that if I didn't continue to elevate in my life, in my career, I wouldn't be able to help my family as much. I would, but these days, financial capabilities come into play very strongly. So for example, my sister had bought him a laptop for school because he does homeschool. And they were having issues. Brand new laptop, I think they paid over $1,000 for it. So it should be good, right? Yeah. So they were working with it, it was always having issues. They were sending it back. And I remember one day, my sister told me, oh yeah, it just broke. And my nephew was like, yeah, it goes on and off, and this, it overheats, doesn't charge, and all these things. And I just kept hearing it over and over. Every time I would come to San Diego, I would hear something about the computer. And one day I just got tired. I'm like, you know what? My nephew shouldn't be struggling when it's involving school. So I just literally bought him a brand new laptop. Nice. I bought him a MacBook. not the most expensive one, but like an Air one, a brand new one, because I know I personally have one and I've had good experience with MacBooks and they last. I haven't had an issue with none of mine. So I just bought him one. I didn't think about it. I went on, I'm like, you know what? We're gonna finish this. No more of these issues. And I bought him one. And ever since then, he hasn't had a single issue with it. But I was actually talking to my mom about this morning, that I wouldn't be able to as freely do that if I didn't elevate myself. And actually, I wish we had a napkin, but I recently was watching a podcast. I don't remember her name, but she was saying if you have a napkin, and the napkin, you're in the middle. And surrounding the outer part of a napkin, you could say it's your siblings, your mom, your dad, grandparents, significant other, whatever. And if you were to pinch that napkin in the middle, and you start lifting it up, because you're elevating and lifting yourself up, alongside that, you're lifting others with you. Oh, because they're all tied to you. So in the you're in the center. So if you could visualize that as you pinching, you're grabbing it and you're bringing it up. Okay, you're coming up, but you're also bringing everyone around you up. You could be your friends or whoever else with knowledge, finances, opportunities. So it's so important. And that's kind of what drives me, and I just related so strongly with it as you were mentioning it right now. It gives me at least the why. Obviously, freedom and having money and all that. Everyone wants that. But it's big on helping your loved ones and the people close to you.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
I'm about to use that on some of my patients.
So
like,
good.
yeah.
I'll send y'all the podcast. It was so good. I do on Thursdays, I just go on a walk around my neighborhood and I was listening to it and stuff like this just be giving me chills.
Yeah.
It was just so good because the way she just actually did it with the napkin, just the visualization and the analogy, just bringing everyone up. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, because especially because like when my patients, I'm pretty sure Gabe, you relate with this also. When like our clients, when they don't do their exercises, especially if they're like parents or like people depend on them, it's like, hey, if you don't better yourself, like maybe in a few years if your health gets worse, hopefully it doesn't, then guess what? You won't be able to elevate your kids or your significant others. So I'm like, you better work on yourself. So I'll probably say something like that using the napkin analogy.
Bro, just bring out napkins.
Honestly,
Start pulling napkins out.
I have Kleenex. I have Kleenex at work.
Actually perfect because it just flops
there
on
we
the
go.
sides.
There we go,
Yeah. Dang, that's good. I think this is just good synchronicity right now on if you don't help yourself and helping others. So I'm big on my fitness. And I focus so much on everything that I learned on nutrition, on habits, sleep, steps, walk, everything I could possibly improve on constantly. And I'm constantly providing and sharing this information with my family. And one person, it goes back to my nephew that I give a lot of focus on because I struggled with being overweight. I struggled with not knowing what to eat. The lack of knowledge, right? So now what I do is I always provide that to my nephew. Hey, if you have a plate and you have some potatoes and you got some toast and this, pick one carb. I'm not saying you can't have it, but you pick one. Yeah. Or if you had some ice cream, you pick one thing. So I try to implement or suggest all these different ways of improving. I recently got him to walk on the treadmill. I told him, all you gotta do is walk 30 minutes to an hour, put on a cartoon. You're gonna be watching it anyways, but you're stepping. He's like, okay, I could do that, but I facilitate it. And I started with other things. So most recently, my sister called me and she said, hey, guess what? Now, she said she started losing weight and being all healthy, and then also my nephew at the same time. So he says he walks. He walks for an hour when in between classes of his homeschooling. He said he's working on his nutrition. He started cooking, and his birthday just passed. And I asked my sister, hey, what does he want for his birthday? What do we get him? And it was, I know, right? I'll put him on eventually. But I asked what he wanted. He said he wanted a gym membership. He's 13.
Oh, wow.
He wanted a gym membership.
Okay.
And he didn't say a toy. He didn't say anything else. He said he wants to start working out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, yes. And one thing is important to me is because not tooting my own horn a little bit, he looks up to me. Yeah. But I try to be the best example that I can. And yeah, he just started taking that because I'm putting that example. If I wasn't into fitness, if I wasn't into that, if I wouldn't make suggestions, it wouldn't help the surroundings. So it was tying into what you were saying. If they don't help themselves, how are they going to help their kids and all that?
They're watching. We're role models, whether we're conscious about it or not. Like the kids are always soaking up all of that. And yeah, I've been thinking about that more recently. That's part of like, dang, if I want to have a family in 3 to 5 years, not only is San Diego expensive, like I want to make a good living, I can support a family, but also I know what I want my kid to be like in this world, and I need to think, am I all those things? Because if I'm not, I need to get on that. You know what I mean? I'm going to be representing that.
Yes.
But I love this podcast. We've been covering a lot of different topics. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you feel like, Izzy, we should touch on, or a little more you want to say about like your own brand and everything and what you do there?
Something we could touch on is, I would say, in your paths to your definition of success, what would you share to someone that they would be on a path to whatever their definition of success is that's helped you out tremendously that you would give as advice to them?
I think for me, I was reflecting on this recently. I was just thinking like, wow, I remember like 6-7 years ago, like I had hurt my back. I was really depressed and anxious, and my life was just, at the time, it just felt like I had nothing going for me. And now I was just reflecting, I'm like, wow, I own my own business. I have a supportive network of like friends and family, and like I'm like, I had just given like a talk to like a very small group of 6 people in our networking group.
Yeah, yep.
But I'm like, I remember when I felt like anxiety even going out of my house, and like I had this social anxiety. I was just so overwhelmed. I just gave like a presentation about something that I love, and I'm like helping other people doing. So I think that reflection's big, but also just remembering like your current circumstances don't define you. Cause like, you know, I feel so like I've just grown so much from that time in my life. And it doesn't mean like, you know, maybe the audience member, they don't relate to something, maybe haven't had like that dark of a time, or maybe they have, who knows. But it's just like remembering that like, you know, whatever your current circumstances are, it doesn't define you, and like change takes time. But like when you just start going, like you start to see that progress along the way, and it's so exciting. And like you just keep building off that. And I'm thinking, wow, I remember when I was there and I'm here now, where am I gonna be in another 5 years? So just like, I think that hope, you know, like that hope that as long as I'm taking constant action to improve, something good will come.
I love that.
Yeah.
Very well put.
I would say it's still going to be, I think Gabe already mentioned this, where it's like who you surround yourself with. Because I still think that's the big thing, where it's like, because like I put myself through a mentorship group. I think I mentioned that when we did our interview. I remember that question now. And I still believe to this day that that's what like helped me like stay successful, because because especially if you have like a lot of like personal narratives or limiting beliefs to yourself of like, oh, you won't make it. It's like oh, it's not in your, you know, your family was never really a business owner or was never really into self-development. They're all like employees. Why would you? Because there's that monkey always talking. But like if you hang out with people who have that same goal, where they want to, you know, be the best in their business, especially in the mentorship I'm in, it's a lot of physical therapy business owners. Yeah. Where if I'm literally looking at that group chat every day and like talking there every day, engaging, and I'm always like, okay, this is gonna help my mindset. Yeah. Because if you kind of take yourself out of that loop, then you're gonna let that default voice or that monkey voice come back in. So I just feel like, I mean, I wouldn't say ignore the monkey voice, because that monkey voice is a purpose. It's like, there's a reason why, because of like maybe trauma in your life, maybe things were scars as a kid, but always like kind of sticking to your goal, which is surrounding yourself with other people to get to your goal of like what you want to do as a business owner.
I love that. One thing I see that we're all kind of in sync is we're in different paths, but no matter what, we're just still taking steps forward.
Yeah.
Steps forward and steps forward.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. Man, well, thank you so much for coming on, Izzy. This was so fun. This was an awesome podcast. I feel inspired. I feel juiced up right now.
I'm about to go work on something right now.
We'll go ahead and put your YouTube channel in the description, so if anyone wants to check out an amazing pod, go ahead, check out Imposter Monkey. It's a great YouTube channel. Anything else you want to promote or that they should check out? I know you're on Instagram as well.
I'm at put everything in the description. Yeah, all the handles.
I love it. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will all see you in the next episode. Peace.